record. Okay, now the question is, can anybody hear me out there? Let's see. Because it didn't say recording in progress. All right, let's see here. Testing. All right, as we're going here, I will. Okay, good. We're going to start. We want to set an environment variable. We know how to do this now, right? All right, let's set an environment variable called name. And just put your first name in there. No quotes. So whatever you want to put in there. Should I use my Starbucks name? I'll use Dave. Because my Starbucks name is nobody knows what. Every time I use Dale, they who what? So I'm Dave when I go to Starbucks. So what happens if I echo $name? Before I hit return, what do you think will display? Your name. What about using double quotes? What will it display? Same thing. What about single quotes? Oh. Now, what are we looking at here? Well, in shell, specifically all of them, bourne shell, corn shell, they have something called levels of quoting. And this is the dark art of programming advanced shell scripts, okay? There's been a push to say, hey, we need to get rid of bash and use something else and rewrite it as something like Go or use Python or Scheme or something as a shell. But I've been hearing that for 20 years. It's not going to go anywhere because there's so much legacy code out there. Knowing how to read shell and figure out these levels of quoting is not easy. What we're going to do tonight is use a combination of this level of quoting and where does it bite you in the real world. So let's start. What I'd like to do is have you go find the Wikipedia commonly misspelled words in English. You can search on 100 or 200. And then what I want you to do is highlight all of them down to wherever you think you can get them all. Okay. And then you right click and you can copy them. Then when you're in your terminal session, I want you to use VI for this. We're using guest in front of us. The reason we're using guest on the machines in front of us is that we are going to see some differences between our local machine and our remote machine. And if you're on Windows, you'll see even more differences. But basically, we're going to expose you to this wonderful nightmare called Unicode. Okay, so let's just create an editor session called Junk. Or better, let's do that. Let's call it bad words.txt. Now, everything's in my cut buffer, right? I want to put it into my VI session. What character do I use to put my editor into an insert mode? I, yay. And now I hit Control-Shift-V and paste it all in. Okay. I will stop there. And do we have success? a couple of successes. Okay, first thing we want to do is escape colon W and write the file out, save it. Okay. If we need help, help each other here. And we'll do this same exact process again, so you'll be able to remember what we're doing. Now the question is, this looks okay, right? Now we're going to play a little bit with this, and I kind of want to have some fun with it, okay? I'll also be showing you some VI tricks. Okay.
Escape, I will not let me escape. So,
Having problems? Everybody got it for the most part? We got one.
pressure.
Okay. Now you got them. Now hit escape. Colon. That's not the colon. Okay. You should colon. It should. Where are you getting here? Oh, you take the you. In the editor.
Some feet, I think.
Oh, make sure your mouse in the window. Double click because your focus follows mouse. If your mouse is out of focus, and now try it. There you go. Okay, once it's saved, now let me show you what focus is. Windows people all know this. You move to another window and you click to bring the window into focus. Linux gives you the option to say focus follows mouse. So notice I don't have to click. It's just changing with me. This is called sloppy focus. And there's other ways to set it. I prefer to use it this way. I prefer using focus follows mouse. Okay. Now that we have this, what I want to do is have some fun with this and take a look at those hyphens. First thing I want to do is right after my A, I'm going to AB. I'm just going to type in the letter A. And this puts me back into insert mode. And I'm going to put in a bunch of hyphens. Okay. All I'm going to do. All right. Then I hit escape. Now we are going to go through this entire editor session and replace all the hyphens into vertical bars. And the way we do that in VI is you hit escape, colon, you see it down here at the bottom, and then you say %. This means whole file. Okay. Then you say substitute /- /vertical bar /G. Now, this isn't going to work, but we're going to go through why it doesn't work as we do this. Okay. So we hit colon, and then we're going to say the entire file, which means this. You can also say things like line 1 through 10. Okay. So you don't have to do the whole file. And then you say S for substitute. And then this is a regular expression, and regular expressions are monstrously powerful. Okay. This is how the web runs, basically, is regular expressions. And what we are saying is take our hyphen and replace it to a vertical bar. For every instance of hyphen, replace it with a vertical bar. And if you hit enter, what happens? 8 substitutions on 2 lines. What happened? Here's a hyphen. Those were hyphens. It didn't work. Welcome to the world of copy, cut and paste code from the web to your editor, and you wonder why it doesn't work. Unicode issues, 99% of the time. So what we're going to do is now just hit escape, okay, and type in locale. What's it say? This kind of shows you our language, doesn't it? We're going to change one of them. Notice it says LC all. It's blank. This one right here. We're going to change this to the letter C, as in programming in C. So we just simply say LC underscore all equals C. Now, does this change this for all our terminal sessions? No, just the one, because we're not using export. We hit enter. I hit up arrow. And I go through this and it didn't show it. Oh, well, nuts. We'll have to do it another way. We'll do it this way. First of all, let's find out what. That should have. What do we got here? We got, this is setting it. Okay, bring up another fun. All right. I'll have to show it to you the other way. Was hoping it would show up, but I'm going to explain that environment variable in a second. Okay. When you install VI, it comes with a tool called XXD. This is a hexadecimal dump. But before we do that, let's do man space ASCII and oops, or just ASCII in this case. And I want to look up the hexadecimal code for the hyphen. Okay. In hex, it's 2D. Okay. So it's 2 delta is equal to a hyphen. Okay. So if I say add words to XXD vertical bar less so it doesn't fly by. These are all the hexadecimal codes. We can see that when I put in the hyphens and change them to vertical bars, that worked. But our AB absence and then the next ones that follow, we can see that we have some weird stuff. What's hex? What's a 20 hex? To space. You've seen it. I know you've seen it because when you surf the web, you've seen something like this. It's encoding the spaces. That's where it's coming from. Okay. So what we have to do is figure out what this character is that's giving us heartburn, because I can't replace it in my VI session. This will give you all kinds of headache when you import and export data to and from international databases. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. What happens is nobody tells you how to fix this. First of all, they're not going to tell you that their data is corrupted, because it works when it's in the Spanish translation, but then when you change it to English, all of a sudden the grave mark behaves entirely different and your backticks don't work in your shell scripts. This is a problem. While you're looking at this, I'm going to look up something real quick. Look up the website Trojan Source. Here, I'll show you how to fix this in a minute. Whoops, spelled it wrong. Take a few minutes and read this in light of what we just talked about. This is not in your Linux Plus. When they announced this paper, they immediately, every compiler that's current, people jumped on it to fix this. Because basically, you change your language to read right to left, and now you can parse the comments to create a Trojan. So you upload all this legitimate stuff with good comments, you load a language that reads left to right, you've just pawned the box. That's what this is about. It's Unicode. This would not work in the old 8-bit world of ASCII, but you can't put a lot of the languages like Chinese into 8-bit ASCII. That's why fax machines are so big over in Asia, because they had a way to get things graphically moved quickly. It took a little longer for fax machines to get over here because we didn't need them as much. We had teletype and it worked just as well. Okay. So back to our problem here. So now what do we do? How do we fix this? Oops. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a CW, which means copy word. And I'm going to go up here to the very top and do paste, 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 paste. Whoops. Escape. Paste, 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 paste. So I'm just pasting in a copy of this. So what I did is I moused over to right where my hyphen is. And I did CW, which means copy word. Okay. And then I went up to the top and then I just typed in, hit escape, and then typed in P for paste. Okay. And there they are. I'll put some character turns in there.
Press escape first.
And then once you do this, exit out and hex dump it and see what the characters are on that very first line.
Quick question. What was the command to copy the hyphen again?
CW,
CW, thank you.
copy word.
No,
You hit escape first, CW, and then go up to the top, and then the letter P, paste, 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 paste. And now dump it. Now notice our first line, all we did was put in those hyphens, right? And then we hit enter. Geez. We hit enter a bunch of times. That's the enter. 0A. So do we see a repeating pattern? That's a repeating pattern. That's definitely a Unicode character. Now, how am I going to change that puppy? There are ways. Okay. Now, the other things you can do is you can copy this into something like Word, save it as a text file, and then bring it up, and then you'll see it. It's a mess, and then clean up the mess. But this could take a long time. Welcome to the world of ETL, extract, transformation, and layout. And yes, you can make your entire career cleaning stuff up like this. Okay. Now, what am I going to do? How do I get rid of this thing? Well, let's try a few things and see if I can remember how to get it all to work. And I want to use it's E2 80 93. That seems to be the pattern. Okay. All right. So I want to do this. I want to do a substitution just on line 1. I'll put in line 1. Substitution 0x, which means do this in hex, E2 8093 with vertical bar. Didn't work. Pattern not found. Did I type it in right? E2 28 093. Yes, I did. Yeah. Didn't replace it. Hmm. Does not find it. Let's do this. Because what I did as a demo before I did this was I used some different tools. Okay, it doesn't see that. Oops. See, man, grep for it. Oh, E. Okay, I want to extreme F. Search on hex. Nope, not having much luck here. That'd be your homework. Go figure this out. There's 10 right answers to solve the problem. But what brought this to the surface was when I was in the Jeremy account. Oops. Am I in? I think I need to be in the text and yeah. Nope. Must be on this box. Ah, found it. On a different box. This is a script. After you do an install and an update, this is a script that fixed the SSHD when it had the shell shock bash, where there was a major security problem. Okay. I want you to notice. Okay. And this is saying, when you look for this, add this ID to it. Okay. So what it's doing is actually taking an existing configuration file, finding parameters in the configuration file, and rewriting that one line rather than copying the whole thing, because they don't know how I have got my SSHD config set up. So this update script is complex, but what it's doing is updating just the script without changing the variables I've put in there. Make sense? Kind of, sort of. This is why, you get the big bucks doing this kind of thing. And let's look at that script. Whoops. I got to bring it up as super user. Okay. Make it bigger so we can see it. Okay. So what it's doing is just about any time. What's that do? Redirecting standard error. This is pretty quirky looking, isn't it? It's just another programming language. But I will say this, compared to Go or Rust or Python, Bash has got some weirdness to it because of the history of computing. They have kept it backwards compatible. And so good and bad and indifferent, that's part of it, okay? So as we go down and we look more of what this is doing, see, it's rewriting all sorts of things and checking things. There's 290 of these. This is all written in Bash. They might have a tool that sort of generates it, but somebody's going to have to write it. You suppose it's somebody just out of school? One thing I think I put it on, I know I put it on the lab site. It says Bash as a programming language. It's it's for the open source convention that they used to have. It's a fellow, I think, from Facebook, and he shows that Bash is used for mission critical stuff all over Facebook. Well, yeah, because it works at this low level and you can connect things together and make things work. Okay. So a lot of, even though you may run your machine in Thai or Hindi or Spanish or French, your configuration files are not written in those languages. They're written in English. So what kind of headache would it be if you were the Chinese government and saying, hey, we want to rewrite all the Bash into Chinese and use a Chinese interpreter? Oh, what a headache. Okay. Because Chinese has what? 8 gazillion characters. Okay. Are they doing it? Yes. So when you get hit with some stuff from China and you manage to hex code it, you're going to see Unicode characters that take up more than 2 bytes. Big indication that it's from somewhere else that's using the Unicode character set. Okay. So interesting stuff. Okay. I wanted to bring that out because this is, I do want to show you we'll do this again on the Jeremy box. So let's see, where am I? Backward, yeah, I'm right here. I want to bring that up in my editor. VI, bad word. Whoops, would help if I can get the right. Okay, so now we know we have this, so we have to change some of that, right? So there is this button that I got that I programmed in a MRC that shows the invisible codes. Okay. It just shows you carriage returns and tab and spaces, but it doesn't show you special characters. Okay. What I want to do now is show you a hotkey that allows you to embed normal ASCII characters into your screen here. So follow with me here. You make sure you are in command mode. Okay. You're in command mode. Then hit Control V. And then the key you want to embed, it's hexadecimal into your code. And I'm going to use F4. Okay, let me try that again. Control V. Oh. Control V. That's right. Yeah, there we go. All right. I was wrong. Here we go. All right. You have to be in insert mode. Hit the letter I. So you're now in insert mode. Then Control V. Notice this caret there. Press any key on your keyboard and see what you get. I'm going to use U. Didn't do anything. Then if it doesn't work, you just hit enter. Okay. Now I hit enter. I've now got that funny looking character M. Let's do another one. Insert, Control V, Control L. Insert, Control V, Control I. What happened? It inserted a tab. Control I is a tab. See the little up arrows? The caret? Watch what happens. Now this one isn't going to show it. Oh. That escapes it. So form feed is the one we want. That's the one that used to come in really handy. Form feed. Let's see here. Hex octal. This is because I've installed the ASCII package. Only ISO. Let's do that. What I'm trying to get at is that you will find charts that shows this as an uptick letter L. That'd be a form feed. Or the up, the caret letter M, that would be your line feed. Because if I was to bring this to Windows, or you bring Windows here, you'll see extra hexadecimal characters for carriage return and line feed. This stuff can get very obtuse. So I'm going to stop at this moment, and we'll still be on our box in front of us. But what I want to do now is talk about if. So write an if test on a blank piece of paper for me. You can't do that quite yet. We haven't really learned it. So we're going to learn how to use if tonight. And the first thing I want you to do before we write, do man space bracket. Man space, open bracket. What's it say? Test. So when you write an if statement, and it says if open bracket, it can actually be written as if test. So it's a built-in. So the square bracket, open square bracket, is exactly the same thing as the test word. Okay. This will haunt you because how many create their programs and they call it test? Don't do that because it will haunt you. And go, why doesn't this work? Well, you've just messed up your system because you created a test program that's not the test command, and all of a sudden nothing works. For example, in the Python class, I had students import the turtle module. And what did they name their program? Turtle. And it didn't work because turtle py is the name of the module that you import. So you rename your code to turtle py and nothing works. Same problem here. Okay. So if tests, okay. And as we do this, I want you to bring up another website. It's called Shell Check. It's that simple. You just type in shell check and you can paste your code in and it shows you the proper way to code it. Okay. Here's a bash. Okay. It's loading a random example. Now, the code that they're loading is going to work. But what it's showing you is all these warnings when you go between locales, English, Spanish, French. Okay. They may not work. Okay. And notice these are all warnings. And they're telling you how to fix it. Okay. Now, I brought that in and notice 19 here. It says, warning, arguments to this comparison can never be equal. Make sure your syntax is correct. Okay. Echo using Linux. If you name. That looks like fun to play with. Let's see what happens. Let's take those last 3 lines on that one. You probably got a different example. Guaranteed you did. So let me bring this in here. Now, on my, I'm going to put it in my bin directory. Now, if you want to keep your if test, log into the Jeremy box and put it in your in-class directory. Why don't we do that? Oops, I want to go into the Tux user in class. And I want to call it VI if playground, if play. And bash. Now I'm just going to take it as it is. I'm going to look at it and see what it does. I'm going to see what happens. Okay. Now, while that's up, I'm going to log in a second time. So I can have as many shells open as I want and type in uname. Okay, it looks like uname is equal to uname. Maybe. Okay. So if I run this, it's going to run the command and it's going to hopefully match that string. And then the result should be using Linux. It should print using Linux. Notice when I start an if, then how do I end an if? Fee. It's if spelled backwards. Bash does that. If you start a case statement, how do you end a case statement? You spell case backwards. So since it's not executable, I just type in bash if play. It didn't print anything. See what it said. It said, warning, the arguments to this comparison can never be equal. Make sure your syntax is correct. Okay. Do a quick search or chat GPT, I don't care. Bash equal for text equal for numeric. See what you come up with.
It's supposed to be 1 equal sign instead of 2 equal sign.
Pardon?
It's supposed to be 1 equal sign instead of 2 equal sign. Yeah.
Right. We're going to get there. We're going to explain what we've got here.
You know what's in the opposite? In Visual Basic that I'm in.
Well, in JavaScript, you can use 3 equal signs.
It's all over the place, every single language. It's all over the place.
Yeah, you got to learn the nuances. Now, in Python, this would be correct because this is checking equality for numeric and text. But in Bash, equality for numeric versus text.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. I want you to notice something that is a little bit, it's once you get it, you're going to remember it forever. When you compare numbers, you use the letters for greater than or equal to. Okay, EQ is equal. When you compare strings, you use the mathematical symbols. So they're different. String, you use the mathematical. And numeric, you use, shall we say, the English side of things. Now you're going to say, why is that? Go talk to some very old programmer who's probably dead. Because in the early days, they didn't really do much with text processing. Okay. They had to add, the shell was kind of evolving with the operating system. You didn't want to write everything in assembler or have to write C code to do everything. So they wrote this kind of generic wrapper in C called SH, the shell, so they could do limited things from the shell to make the machine do other things. Okay. And here's what the fellow said who invented Kernan and Ritchie. I believe it's in their book, the classic Kernan and Ritchie C. They said, you know, once we developed our software and we gave it to the end users and it didn't work right, they came back for us to change. And then I realized that most of my life would be fixing software to somebody else's requests, i.e. fixing bugs. That's 90% of what you do when you get your first programming job. You're going to fix somebody else's bugs. Okay. All right. So let's play with it. Now notice if test. Let's take that one right there. And let's just go back to our if play. Alt tab here. So we know this one needs some help. And you can just say fix me. Okay. And then you could add a little comment here. It says never prints using, I'll just say never prints. Okay. Or never echoes. Good enough. So I could just leave it there. Paste this into it. And then turn right around, up arrow. Warning, MIME type for 2 is not greater. Octet stream. Oh no! What are we debugging? Our unicode. Because we copied code from the web. We have no idea what the encoding is. Okay. That should technically work, right? It's, well, okay, well, let's go in here and leave that right where it is. And I'm just going to type it in. If bracket 2 greater than 3. And, oh, wait a minute. What's this print thing? What shell are they talking about? Is there a print statement in Bash, folks? No. So what were we copying? Pseudocode. All right. Duh. So let's fix that first. Welcome to the world of troubleshooting your own copy, cut, and paste. CW echo. And I'll delete this for right now. Let's see if I get the same error. Oops. I need a space. I need spaces around these operators. Bash is really picky about spaces. Okay. So that's how we compare numeric. It does not use the numeric signs. It uses greater than or equal to, which would be GE, or EQ for equal, less than or equal to, or LE for less than and equal to. Okay. There's a chart. Okay. Numeric or text is going to be like this. Let's make it like this. And we know what it's supposed to return. See what happens with this. So that'll be fun. If then fee. Doesn't seem to work. Python, it's if, then, elif, else, right? C++ has something else, okay? And let's do the, it's kind of fun. Dust off the dust off the cobwebs here. I like this old book. It's got everything in it you're ever going to need. It's the one I posted online. Oh, that's. So, wow. If, then, elif. Yeah, if, then, else. If you have it, then you need the else. There we go. Whoops. Yeah. Now, the way this works with Bash, you have your if, then, else. You really can't do if, then. I guess you could, if else, but it's going to get to be a mess. It's better to use a case statement. When you start getting into nested ifs, let me give you some horror stories. So it worked. One of the horror stories about Unicode and characters is, you probably heard this in some of my other classes, is we had a printer up at Kelso, Washington that was a fancy line printer, printed out invoices. And the invoices came up and they got all crunched in a corner. And every time they ran that route, it got crunched in the corner. And the tech up there was pulling his hair out because they needed to get the chicken out. And so he called me and I said, is it happening on the same route? He said, yes. Okay, give me the name of the customer that printed correctly and what the customer should have been when it was all crunched in the corner. Well, I went into the customer master record and found extended area for comments. This is what happened. I'm gonna put it right here. Let's see, not using, that's the one we're using. Somebody had embedded an F5 character right into the data stream. And that character made the printer go crunch and all the print go into one little corner. Real world problem, okay? So what happens if I try to run this with that in there? It ignored it. It completely ignored that. But if I was to send to the printer, who knows what we'd get? I'm not going to try it because sometimes it ends up printing for 2 days. One little character another little character, and you can't delete it. It's a mess. Anyway. All right. And another thing about nested if. This is a problem that I ran into rather frequently, is that there would be business logic added into programs, if, then, if. And then when you get the nested ifs down to a point where it's, things can start getting slow. So what you can do, especially in SQL, this really shows up in SQL. People start by selecting everything and then taking a piece of it, and then a piece of it, and then a piece of it, and then a piece of it to get what they want. SQL allows you to say, let's reverse the logic and get what I need first. That way you're not doing these huge table scans on 8,000 million records. Same thing with nested if statements. Sometimes all you have to do is reverse the logic. Instead of testing for X and then testing for Y again way down in the bottom, test for Y first and reverse the logic of your ifs, and you can get some dramatic improvements in speed. I saw this in COBOL where an update was taking several days. And what they did is this COBOL doesn't have a case statement. So you would do a nested if down to the bottom if, and then we'd go back up to the top and start all over again. So what the programmer did is at the very bottom of that, he said, go to top. It went from 3 days to 3 hours. He was a hero. One word in the right place. There's Mr. Diesel, the guy that invented the diesel engine. He was called in to Kansas City where they had these monsters. This is years ago. Monstrous diesel engines to create power. Okay. And there was a knocking on one of it, on one of the cylinders. And Mr. Diesel walks around and he spends, 15, 20 minutes listening very closely to the engine. He takes his ball peen hammer. This is a great story because it's true. And he finds where it's, and he goes, bang! And the knocking quit. He billed him thousands of dollars. And he says, what? For just using a hammer once? But knowing where to use the hammer once is what you're paying me for. That's true in a lot of cases. You're paying for the expertise, not so much what is actually done. Like putting one word into a average programmers would never know that. Okay. Same thing with nested ifs. Reverse the logic. Sometimes you have to know what the logic is, so you have to read a lot of code. Okay. So there's your if statement. Now, what's the difference here? I've got 2 of them. Okay. And I got 1 of them. Google it. See what you can find the difference is. Bash. You would say bash and then say versus. There you go, right there. There we go. Perfect. Right where we're going to go into Bourne shell, which is notice right there, amongst its extended features, it can test or whether a string matches a wildcard pattern. What does that mean? Wild cards. Remember our question marks and our splats? Still work. Didn't die. Okay. Now let's use the single. On VI, you can use Shift 5 to go between your balanced brackets. So you hit the Shift key and press the percent key, and it goes back and forth between your brackets. So you can see if they're balanced. Still work. Okay. Posits. Okay. There we go. This is all the dark arts. I'm not going to go real deep into that. This is the stuff that you go learn when you have to, because you're going to forget it, because it's so obtuse. You're just going to forget it. Okay. So, even though it's 6 o'clock, what I want you to do somewhere is write down an if test that compares two strings and prints one of them, and then compares two numbers and says one of them is greater than the other. Okay. And then when you come back on Thursday, I'll give you a blank card, and I'll ask you for a for loop and an if test. And that will be graded. Okay. So you'll do all from memory.
Yes.
And use the internet, do whatever you want, get the answer, figure it out. Comparing two strings, comparing two numbers, something very similar to what we've just done here. Okay, this is really close to the right answer. And then find out for your own understanding of what the difference of single is, what two of them mean. And then inside bash, we have one bracket, we have a 2 parens, and then we have a 3 paren. What do they mean? Okay. Exactly why we have assignment in JavaScript. We have equality in JavaScript, sort of. String 4 equals numeric 4. And now in JavaScript, you can say, now numeric 4 matches numeric 4. A language everybody loves to hate, but it still runs the planet. And why did we use 2 of these instead of just 1? Try it with 1 and see what happens. Okie dokie. So you've now learned some interesting things with Unicode. So when you copy, cut, and paste, caveat emptor, buyer beware. And I will stop the recording. I'll just end the meeting. That's easier.
What's that?